Welcome to Spring Festival Horrors. Please adhere to the following rules. Rule number 1. Pay close attention to your words and actions. You are forbidden from speaking or behaving inappropriately in front of any NPCs other than your parents. Rule number 2. Ensure that you can accurately address all NPCs by their proper titles. Rule number 3. During meal preparation, female characters must not leave the kitchen, and male characters must not enter it. Rule number 4. Should an NPC request you to perform, you must never refuse. Rule number 5. If an NPC offers you money, refuse immediately. If refusal is not possible, return the money to your parents at once. Rule number 6. You may seek help from your parents under any circumstances, but remember never to trust them completely. As an orphan, I spent every spring festival alone. After enjoying some decent takeout, I no longer had any interest in watching the Spring Festival gala. Listening to the continuous sound of firecrackers outside my window, I put on my headphones and went to bed early. Zayo-obey, wake up, it's time for dumplings. In a hazy state, I heard someone calling my name. In a house where I lived alone, how could there be anyone else? With this thought, I pulled the blanket tighter and continued to sleep. However, the person, seeing I wouldn't budge, unexpectedly pulled off my blanket. As I left the warmth of my bed, the surrounding cold air immediately enveloped me. "Who are you?" The middle-aged woman by the bed shook my head. "Still half asleep. Who am I? You don't recognize your own mother. Stop sleeping, hurry up and get up to eat dumplings." After speaking, she pulled a pair of pants from the nearby wardrobe and tossed them to me. Seeing that my drowsiness had indeed lessened significantly, she left, but did not close my door. I was utterly bewildered. What in the world was happening? How had I, an orphan, woken up to find I suddenly had a mother? As I pondered intensely but found no answers, a piece of text appeared before my eyes. Welcome, everyone, to Spring Festival Horrors. Please adhere to the following rules. Rule 1. Mind your words and actions. You are forbidden from saying anything disheartening in front of any NPC other than your parents. Rule 2. Please ensure you can accurately address all NPCs by their proper titles. Rule 3. During meal preparation, female characters must not leave the kitchen, and male characters must not enter it. Rule 4. When an NPC requests you perform, you absolutely must not refuse. Rule 5. If an NPC offers you money, refuse it immediately. If you cannot refuse, return the money to your parents at once. Rule 6. You may seek help from your parents under any circumstances, but remember not to trust them completely. After reading these words, I pinched myself. Indeed, a red mark appeared on my arm, and the pain was real. Well, since I'm here, I'll make the best of it. In any case, as an orphan who has struggled in society for so many years, I've seen environments far more challenging than this. Donning the clothes handed to me by my so-called mother, I walked out of the never-closed bedroom door. 2 figures were busy in the kitchen. The other one was presumably my father. Yet, judging by his youthful appearance, he looked at least 15 or 16 years younger than my mother. Never mind, I won't dwell on it. Older women dating younger men is normal these days. Who knows, she might even be the youngest in our family. The man turned and said something to my mother, who then called out from beyond the door, "Are you awake?" Startled by the call, I immediately replied, "Yes, I'm awake, Mom." After the dumplings were placed on the table, the man called me to fetch the wine. I had only just arrived today. How was I supposed to know where it was? I was about to shout loudly, "Dad, where's the wine?" Suddenly, I remembered the rule about accurately addressing all NPCs by their proper titles. I forcibly swallowed the word dad back into my mouth. By the time I found the wine and returned, a middle-aged man had already appeared at the table. "Zio Bey, what's wrong with you today? Quickly hand the wine to your dad. Your brother hasn't been back in so long, so hurry up and pour a glass for both of them." Hearing my mother's shouts, a cold sweat broke out on my back. Fortunately, living under someone else's roof had instilled in me habits of caution and circumspection. After pouring the wine, I sat down and began to eat the dumplings. Life over the past few days had been calm and uneventful. Aside from my parents waking me up at 7 every morning for breakfast, I, fearing their disapproval, would always rise at their first call. Seriously, what is sleep when death looms? I also dared not spend too much time on my phone. When I stared at my phone for more than 10 minutes, my parents would begin to shout, "All you do all day is play on your phone. Have you finished your homework? Can't you learn from your elder brother? Look, he's almost finished university." When they argued, I would try to pacify them with kind words, but the more I tried to soothe them, the more fiercely they quarreled. After the first 2 days, I grew accustomed to it. When their arguments erupted, I would retreat to my room and put on headphones. At the dinner table, my mother announced that we would be visiting relatives tomorrow. As I picked up a dark, indistinct piece, whether fish or chicken, and put it into my mouth, I knew that the most terrifying part of the Spring Festival horror stories was about to begin. In the middle of the night, just as I was about to close my eyes and sleep, I suddenly awoke with a start. Damn it! Visiting relatives, damn it, I don't even know how to address those relatives. In an instant, all traces of sleepiness vanished. I knocked on my parents' bedroom door and woke my mother from her deep sleep. "Mom, can you teach me how to address all the relatives we're visiting tomorrow?" My mother was terribly sleepy, her eyelids constantly fighting to stay open. Realizing my own life was more important, I persisted. I began to shake her frantically. My mother finally became a little more awake, but she glared at me with murderous eyes. I knew that if I weren't her own daughter, she would surely stab me right then and there. I scratched my head and chuckled foolishly. "Aren't I just trying to bring honor to you tomorrow? One doesn't strike a smiling person. I hoped the ancients hadn't spoken falsely." My mother found last year's family photo on her phone and began to explain how to address each person. I patiently took notes, and after sending the photo to myself, I returned to my room to memorize the key points. These dozen or so people were truly difficult to distinguish. I never felt that Chinese people all looked the same, like how some might perceive foreigners. The next day, as we prepared to leave, Mom was startled to see my dark circles, which were larger than my eyes. Let no one speak, for last night's study session made even a university student's final exam seem utterly insignificant in comparison. Once inside the car heading to Grandma's house, I reclined in my seat, feigning sleep. In reality, my mind was frantically recalling faces and titles. Upon arriving at Grandma's doorstep, I took a deep breath, preparing to alight from the car. Very well, the moment had arrived to test the fruits of my revision and my ability to adapt my speech to any situation. Opening the door, I adorned a standard 8-tooth smile. I stepped forward to embrace the 70-year-old woman who walked amidst the crowd. "Grandma, it's been so long. Your vigor and spirit are practically catching up to mine." Before Grandma could even react, I launched into a cascade of greetings, wishing everyone a happy new year. "My goodness, Auntie, how do you manage to maintain such skin? It's better than a middle schooler's. Great, Uncle, I heard your grandson got into provincial high school. No. One this year. I simply must follow in his footsteps. Aunt, Mom always says she needs to learn from you. You truly have a gift for raising children." After I had accurately rattled off the names of 15 relatives and their New Year's greetings in one breath, the long queue of greeters should, by all accounts, have concluded. Who can tell me why there is now an additional person here? Someone who was not present in last year's family photo. Observing the other person's expectant gaze, I gasped, a cold shiver running through me. I turned my head to glance at my mother, who was engrossed in conversation with my aunt, completely oblivious to my predicament. What should I do? The exam questions were not entirely predictable. Am I, Wang Xiao, to be defeated here today? Cold sweat was already beginning to trickle down my forehead. My mind began to churn furiously, and an idea emerged, though it was far from ideal. "You little rascal, you're quite clever." The NPC seemed to be encountering such a situation for the first time, and she was pondering what to do. Grandma circled around from the side and gently patted her head. "Isn't this Xiao? Have you forgotten? She's your wife's mother's sister's daughter's daughter. So, Xiao, what should you call her?" The two NPCs stared intently at me, their smiles stretching almost to their ears. I began to brainstorm furiously, and in the very last moment before their smiles could falter, I blurted out, "Happy New Year." Only after watching them depart, seemingly content, did I finally exhale a deep breath. Good heavens, I actually managed to say that. Wow, hearing someone speak nearby, I turned my head to look at her. This person seemed to be the child my aunt brought. Could she also be like me? Before I could go over to greet her and exchange secret signals to ascertain her identity, several more cars pulled up to the entrance. She and I exchanged a glance, and in each other's eyes we saw mutual exasperation at the new arrivals. The teenager who stepped out this time was not so fortunate. As soon as she exited the car, relatives began to greet her one after another. Unsure which relative initiated it, everyone began to ask her, "Do you know what you should call us?" She had also prepared in advance, answering effortlessly. However, when the last NPC made an appearance, she began to panic. She clutched her so-called mother, her frightened eyes seeking help. Her mother remained silent, merely smiling as she stared at her. These dozen or so people surrounded her, all staring intently. What she answered, I was too far away to hear clearly. I only observed that after she responded, the smiles vanished from everyone's faces. Their gazes were all reproaching her for being so old and still unable to remember the proper addresses for elders. Amidst her pleas, she was led away by her parents. Compared to this person, the other one was even more fortunate. It seemed she had forgotten about the task of acknowledging relatives. As soon as she exited the car, she was taken away by her parents. As all the relatives gradually arrived, the family banquet was about to begin. Before the family banquet commenced, I quietly made my way outside the main gate. The boy from earlier was already waiting for me at the entrance. Upon seeing me arrive, he was the first to ask, "Are you also from another world?" I nodded. Seeing me nod, he revealed a relieved smile. "Then I hope we can help each other and return to our original world together. My name is Wang Gran. You can just call me Xiao Bei." After briefly understanding each other's general situations, we began to analyze the current circumstances. From what we just observed, the 8 children who arrived this time should all be outsiders. In the previous segment, 2 people died. Currently, including you and me, there are still 6 left. We must gather everyone together. The more people we have, the more strength we possess, and the better we can help each other. Wang Gran and I began to act separately, subtly slipping the written notes into the hands of others. Once all preparations were complete, Wang Gran and I waited by the door for the others to appear. As the others gradually arrived, I began to announce in a low voice. I estimate that today should be the last day. If we endure this day, we should be able to go home. A scoff was heard. A middle schooler, still wet behind the ears and already trying to boss everyone around. I've tried so many methods these past few days and haven't gotten back. You're saying we can go home once tonight is over. There's always a troublemaker, no matter where you go. I ignored him and continued speaking, minding my own business. Everyone has read the rules, right? Many of them are rules for visiting relatives, and this is our only time to visit relatives. So, if we survive tonight, we will definitely be able to go back. After some encouragement, we all saw hope in each other's eyes. As for this spring festival, let those who like it celebrate it. You little girl, are you not listening when I'm talking to you? The troublemaker yelled loudly at me. He grabbed my collar with both hands, intending to lift me up. He was the biggest among all of us. I began to struggle desperately, but I couldn't escape his grasp. A suffocating sensation enveloped me, and my face gradually turned purple. Not having died at the hands of an NPC, was I now to die at the hands of my own people? Stop, what are you doing? Following a loud shout, all the relatives walked to the doorway. The troublemaker began to panic. He released his hand from my neck. Recovering from suffocation, I saw that Wang Gran had brought all the parents. No, I didn't do anything. He provoked me first. He frantically waved his hands, attempting to shift the blame to me. Before I could speak, my mother rushed forward. She held back the troublemaker's parents, who were about to hit someone. Since they are all relatives, we will consider the matter settled for today. Whether the matter was truly settled, I do not know. I only know that the troublemaker was eventually pulled away by his parents. This minor incident quickly passed, and no one mentioned it again. After all, it was the Lunar New Year, and no one wanted to be the one to make everyone unhappy. 3. The dinner banquet was about to begin, and following the rules, we prepared to go to the kitchen to prepare the meal. Strangely, the kitchen bore no resemblance to preparations for the Lunar New Year. There was neither pork nor lamb, nor any fruits or vegetables. I exchanged glances with the other girls, and we both saw confusion in each other's eyes. Grandmother entered, leading us into a small partitioned room. Everything is here. We need to chop the meat before we can cook. As the cloth covering the food was slowly lifted, we saw the 3 people who had previously disappeared. They had already been processed, skinned, and deferred like slaughtered animals. Except for their heads, which still retained skin, the rest of their bodies were no longer recognizable as human. The stripped flesh was reddish, white, and the muscles, not yet devoid of life, were still twitching. A putrid, bloody, and hot stench permeated the enclosed room, inducing nausea. Our faces were pale. The girl standing next to me could no longer bear it. She wanted to leave the room to vomit in the restroom. I tightly gripped her wrist. Forcibly suppressing the nausea, they were still smiling and discussing the dishes to be served later. No one paid attention to the anomaly on this side. Or rather, they noticed but chose not to care. The adults quickly began to chop the meat, wielding large axes and striking down forcefully. With one blow, 2 feet detached from the body. With another strike, the head also separated from the body. Blood from a major artery immediately spurted out, splattering onto our faces. The blood was still warm, sliding down my face, sticky and thick, carrying a raw, metallic smell. One girl could not hold back and screamed. The scream attracted the attention of the boys. Wang Gran rushed over. He stood at the door, hesitating, and did not enter. Another boy rushed in. Wang Gran tried to reach out and pull him back. His hand clutched the padded jacket, but it was too slippery, gradually slipping away from his grasp. I knew this boy. Earlier, he had claimed that he and the girl were a couple, and were even planning to marry. When he spoke of the girl, the happiness in his eyes did not seem feigned. The tragedy had been predetermined from the very beginning. I closed my eyes, allowing the blood to swirl within them. By the time I opened my eyes again, the boy was gone. Only the girl was left, sobbing in the corner of the room. How could you be so unobservant? Why aren't you coming to help us chop the meat? With no time to care further, I took the axe from my mother's hand. My mother looked at me, her expression conveying a sense of gratification. I raised the axe, yet even with my eyes closed, I dared not let it fall. My mother's smile gradually faded as she walked over to my side. "If you don't obey, I'll deal with you when we get home." Her voice was very soft, yet my body trembled slightly. Raising the axe forcefully, I gritted my teeth, thinking that with a resolute heart, the axe would come down. A hand caught my axe. It was the girl who had lost her boyfriend. She turned her head to look at my mother. "Aunt, let me do it. Xiaoyu is truly sensible." My mother praised the girl ceaselessly, and as she did, she cast a sharp, harsh gaze upon me. I lowered my raised head and retreated into the corner. The girl raised the axe high, murmuring something. Standing in the corner, I could not see clearly at all. The axe fell fiercely. Instead of the clang of the axe hitting the ground after passing through a body, it plunged into my mother, who stood beside her. "It's all your fault, all your fault. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't have died. I'm going to kill you all." Her consciousness had vanished, replaced entirely by hatred. Withdrawing the axe from the flesh, she turned and struck at the others. The axe cleaved through their bodies. I witnessed firsthand how the gaping wound, freshly made by the axe, healed completely in but an instant. The young woman's eyes were filled with utter disbelief. She chopped relentlessly, again and again, as the monstrous figures surrounded her. The axe in her hand fell heavily to the ground. The creatures appeared to harbor an intense hatred for her. To strike one's kin is an affront to filial piety, a disgrace that would utterly shame us. They vied with one another to tear at her flesh, devouring her in great mouthfuls. She screamed in anguish, her gaze fixed upon us with profound sorrow. "Save me," she cried out, "I beg you. Even to kill me would be a mercy." The sounds of their gnawing steadily overshadowed her desperate pleas for help. I retrieved the hammer from the ground. As the axe struck the skull, a resounding thud, the young woman collapsed instantly. Before she fell, I distinctly perceived her lips slightly parted, mouthing, "Thank you." "Mother," a voice remarked, "she is truly bothersome. Her constant clamor would be most unwelcome to father and the others." I observed grandmother, her mouth bloody, still chewing on meat she had not yet swallowed. Indeed, I had always maintained that Bai was a sensible and empathetic child. The number of bodies to be dismembered increased from 3 to 5. With the continuous rise and fall of the axe, I found myself able to observe the flying blood and flesh without a single blink. If I harbored any remaining illusions about this world before these familial visits, then at this moment I was utterly despondent. I determined that I must return to my original home, whatever the cost. Though I would be solitary there, it was free from derisive parents, a brother who always used me for comparison, and relatives engaged in subtle power struggles. All of these circumstances had left me profoundly exhausted. The axe struck the cranium, splitting the head in two. Brain matter flowed forth, a viscous substance, with a portion adhering to the axe blade. "I miss my family," tearfully uttered the delicate girl who had recently been unwell, directing her words to me. I cast a glance at her. "Family members are all of a kind," I mused dismissively. Perceiving the disdain in my eyes, she paused her work with the fire and indignantly retorted, "No, They are utterly different. My parents were not like that. They loved me, which is why they named me Kin An. She continuously recounted her stories to me. I knew she was trying to distract herself, to prevent herself from seeing those disgusting things. On the other hand, I knew she was on the verge of breaking down. Still so young, she had already witnessed murder and cannibalism. She merely wished to use her family as a source of encouragement for herself. I offered no response, simply listening in silence. By the end of her narration, she began to weep profusely. Without me, who would take care of my parents, they love me so much, how would they live without me? I remained silent, merely splitting open the last head and taking my seat at the head of the table. I could not see her clearly, and I surmised that she could not see me clearly either. Only after Grandma began to eat were the others permitted to start their meal. At the entire dinner table, only I, Wang Gran, and Kin An did not pick up our chopsticks. We watched as these people devoured their food with relish. They vigorously tore at the human flesh, sucked the marrow from the bones, and heartily drank the fresh blood just drained from the necks. Suppressing our revulsion, we had to wait until the banquet concluded. Just when we thought not eating would be fine, Grandma, seated at the head of the table, spoke. Xiao Bei, Ran Ran, and An, why aren't the three of you eating? Do you perhaps find Grandma's cooking unappetizing? As these words were uttered, all the relatives at the table turned to look at the three of us. They scrutinized us heavily, as if our mere affirmation would brand us as heinous criminals. Grandma, aren't I a dance student? Your cooking is truly delicious. I've been eating all along, you just didn't notice. Look, the bones I ate are still here. I pointed to the bones my mother had left after eating, which lay beside me. School exams are approaching soon, and yet you've made so many delicious dishes. I simply can't control myself. Grandma immediately beamed with delight. Seeing Grandma smile, the relatives likewise donned a facade of fake smiles. It seemed as though this banquet was held solely to please the elder. Should anyone displease the elder, they would face widespread condemnation. Being eaten alive and flayed would not be considered excessive. After joining in the laughter, my mother turned and viciously pinched my waist. You know you're a dance student, yet you dare to eat so much. Did I work so hard to pay for your schooling just so you could indulge in food and fun? The pain brought tears to my eyes, yet it garnered not an ounce of pity from my mother. Why are you crying? Hold back your tears. Is crying during the new year meant to upset everyone? Orphans have no parents. If all parents in the world were like this, then I'd rather be an orphan. Finally, the dinner party came to an end. In the living room, the gentlemen were drinking and conversing freely. From time to time, they would discuss the policies of other nations or criticize foreign customs. Though all their understanding was derived from media, they spoke as if they were experts guiding national affairs, believing themselves superior to professional commentators. Meanwhile, the ladies were tidying up dishes in the kitchen. Should anyone interject a few words while clearing the table, they would be ridiculed by the gentlemen with remarks like, "Don't speak if you don't understand. Indeed, long hair, short wisdom." Thus, the fate of all women was confined to that small space of a dozen square meters, including Grandmother, the guest of honor at this very dinner. After everything was tidied, everyone gathered in the living room for tea and conversation. Amidst the crowd, my uncle looked at me with a confident, knowing smile. "Xiao, Bai just said she's a dance student, so why not perform something for everyone during this time?" I was about to roll my eyes. At the dinner table, I also heard you bragging about being quite rich. How about performing a money, scattering act then? I couldn't refuse the request, but I really couldn't dance. What should I do? Oh well, a desperate situation calls for desperate measures. And so, I performed subject 3 in front of all my relatives. After dancing, I secretly glanced at my mother. Great, my NPC mother was fuming. The scene was awkwardly silent for a moment. It was grandmother who led the applause, and others followed suit gradually. Zayo, I danced well. It's just that grandmother doesn't quite understand modern aesthetics anymore. My mother, humiliated and unwilling to accept it, shifted the conversation to Wang Gran and King An. Ultimately, Wang Gran's powerful song stunned everyone, and King An's English recitation saved my mother's lost face. My uncle remained unconvinced and walked to the center of the living room. The children performed a few acts for everyone. I, representing the adults, shall also perform a few acts for you. I'd like to ask Zayo to assist me in performing the disappearing person magic trick. His gaze sent shivers down my spine. I don't know about a disappearing person trick, but I do know I'd surely die if I went in there. Mom, please, save me. The rules state that one can ask for parents' help at any time, for how could parents harm their own children? Push the left door, and after taking 50 steps, push the right door. My mother whispered into my ear, then forcefully pushed me forward. Inside the pitch-black box, I observed a door in every direction. I pushed open the left door, clearly counting again and again, 1, 2, 50. As I was about to push open the left door, my phone emitted an alert tone. I opened my phone. It was a message from Wang Gran. Which path should I ultimately take? My mother's voice echoed in my ear. Everything mother does is for your own good. How could mother possibly deceive you? But then, what reason would Wang Gran have to deceive me? However, on the other side, there was mother. Would any mother ever push her own child into a raging inferno? My heart slowly leaned towards the right. Just as I prepared to turn the doorknob, I suddenly recalled what was mentioned in the rules. Remember not to fully trust your parents. With a surge of determination, I pushed open the left door. The dazzling white light prevented me from opening my eyes. Ding, 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 everyone, please look towards the entrance. As Uncle pointed at me, everyone saw me standing at the living room entrance. I wanted to confront Mother and ask why. Was I not her child? Yet I did not. I remained motionless in my original spot. I still harbored a final sliver of hope. Perhaps Mother would apologize to me. However, she did not even spare me a glance. It was about to end. Everything was about to conclude. To avoid any contact with this nominal NPC mother, I began to refuse any red envelopes offered to me by others. However, this uncle was indeed persistent. We tugged at each other's clothes, pushed back and forth. My head felt like it was tearing apart, yet neither of us gained an advantage. Uncle, I won't take this New Year's money. I'm already grown up. I don't need New Year's money anymore. Ultimately, it was Grandma who returned and brought an end to our struggle. Grandma approached me, gently stroking my head. Zayo, it seemed, was indeed Grandma's most cherished and obedient child. Thanks to Grandma, I was finally rid of my persistent uncle. Upon meeting Kingen, she had just reluctantly accepted a red envelope from her great-uncle. As she was preparing to deliver the red envelope to her mother, her path was suddenly obstructed by my uncle. With time rapidly expiring, my uncle's smile grew wider, his mouth seeming poised to stretch open and devour Kingen. I quickly rushed forward to restrain my uncle and tell her. Wang Gran burst into the scene, swiftly retrieving a red envelope from my pocket. However, it was already too late. The monstrous entities had already engulfed me. From my uncle's gaping maw, I observed sharp fangs emerging. All the grotesque creatures revealed their true, terrifying forms. They salivated, their minds meticulously devising ways to consume me. The fangs advanced slowly. I could already discern their sharp tips penetrating my flesh. Was I destined to perish here? I pondered this grim question. Yet I was so remarkably close to enduring until the very end. Tears welled in my eyes and streamed down my face as I began to yearn for the tranquil days of solitude. A mother's voice, tinged with mild reproof, questioned, "Oh, Zio, why did you leave the red envelope here? Your mom had to search for it." The mother retrieved the fallen red envelope, gave it a quick blow, and promptly tucked it into her pocket. In that very instant, all the creatures transformed back into their original identities as relatives. They donned their artificial masks, thereby maintaining an illusion of surface-level harmony. The sharp, piercing sensation dissipated from my arm. I swiftly moved to embrace this NPC mother. With a heartfelt sob, I expressed my profound gratitude. "Thank you for saving me." I was acutely aware of the intense scrutiny I now faced. I knew that each of them directed glances of profound disgust and utter revulsion toward the mother. They held the mother responsible for disrupting their sinister intentions. Father positioned himself beside mother, offering her his unwavering, silent support. "Zix, the midnight chimes are about to ring, and we will soon be able to go home." With 10 minutes remaining until midnight, Wang Gran found me. "I thought, Zio Bei, you have the right to know the truth. That King An, he is a swindler. Everything he told you was false. The red envelope in your pocket was also secretly slipped in by him. All of this I witnessed with my own eyes." After saying these words, he handed some documents to me. Inside were files pertaining to King An's identity. He is a con artist. Having entrusted these to me, Wang Gran then departed. With 5 minutes left until midnight, Grandma gathered the entire family together. "I wish to announce something to everyone. You have all departed, and I am too lonely, so one child must stay to keep me company. The 3 children must decide amongst themselves who will stay with me." Time passed, second by second. After we had all expressed our desire to return, everyone fell into a collective silence. With 2 minutes remaining until midnight, I expected everyone to remain silent, but then Wang Gran suddenly moved. He picked up a knife, hidden since an unknown time, and lunged at King An. King An reacted swiftly, but lacking Wang Gran's strength, he was still knocked to the ground. Wang Gran held the knife, aiming directly for King An's forehead. King An desperately arched and pushed Wang Gran's hand away. However, a woman's strength is inherently less than a man's. The knife slowly drew nearer to King An's forehead. With a crash, Wang Gran collapsed onto King An. The blade grazed King An's face, leaving a faint streak of blood. Wang Gran was dead, killed by me. I knew that Wang Gran had been deceiving me. He could not enter the kitchen, so how could he have known that King An had told me his story? As I arrived at the living room entrance, the shock in Wang Gran's eyes was completely evident to me. It couldn't have been him who sent me the message. Who was it then? Someone willing to help me, yet without my contact information. The answer was already clear. Furthermore, Wang Gran could have clearly given my red envelope to my mother, yet he chose to throw it on the ground. Moreover, my mother told me this money was from my grandmother. Only a miserly person like my grandmother would mock her own money. Wang Gran, you deserve to die. Only 1 second remained until midnight. I wiped the blood from the corner of my eye and spoke softly. "Let King An leave. Grandma, I'll stay with you." As the bells chimed, King An departed from this world. If what he said was true, his parents must have been overjoyed to see him. Their family would live in harmony and happiness. He said he had the love of his entire family, while I had nothing. I also wasn't afraid to lose anything. I was an orphan. The journey had been too difficult. No matter which world, It was equally painful for me. It would be better to leave happiness for others. I lay beside Wang Gran's corpse, my heart desolate. I watched as my grandmother gradually walked towards me. In a seaside villa, a photograph and a notebook lay on the desk. The photograph showed the deceased Wang Gran. On the notebook, there were still undried ink stains. In memory of my beloved King An.